You wake up reaching for a rectangle instead of a ribcage. Not because you're weak, because your phone was the only thing that answered last night. 3 texts, 1 read, ignored, 1 thumbs up, a digital pat on the head, 1 still delivered, blue bubble, alone in the dark. That's not connection. That's a log file. And somewhere under the rationalization, you know the truth. You are not being loved. You are being cataloged. Natural connections didn't die. They were out-competed, murdered by architecture. Every app, every feed, every endless doorway is not a tool to bring you closer. It is a machine built to keep you scrolling. The human in you is not evolving toward love. It's being translated into data. We are the loneliest generation in modern history, buried under more connection tools than any humans who ever lived. That's not irony. That's design. No physical I love yous. No honesty unfiltered by an algorithm's guess at what gets engagement. No trust that isn't mediated by a terms of service agreement. What's real is dying. What matters is failing. And every single one of us has become, to some degree, lonely, lonesome, and damn near alone. Baby boomers, 1946 to 1964, feel erased. They built the institutions, raised the kids who text instead of call, accumulated a lifetime of wisdom that gets 5 seconds before the next scroll. The systems they built scaled so hard that memories became useless, unless you're giving them away free to train the bots that will outlive you. Gen X, 1965 to 1980, still saying, "I remember when," hoping for days that will never return. They are the last generation to know uninterrupted conversation, the last to experience boredom as a creative state, not a bug to be fixed by a notification. They are also the least likely to complain, which is exactly why no one asks them what they know. Millennials, 1981 to 1996, walking around saying what the actual fuck. They did everything right. Degree, internship, personal brand, curated feed. They were promised connectivity would become community. Instead, their adult lives are just a series of terms of service agreements they never read. They are exhausted from performing connection and starving for the real thing. Gen Z, 1997 to 2012. Completely oblivious, not because they're stupid, but because they were born inside the aquarium. They have never known a social structure not mediated by a platform. Their loneliness is not a loss. It is an absence with no language to name it. First generation to have their emotional development shaped by engagement metrics. Rejection isn't a feeling to them. It's a data point. The silent generation, 1928 to 1945. Already forgotten while still alive. They built the churches, union halls, bowling leagues, front porches, and they are watching it all dismantled not by enemies, but by convenience. Not lonely because they're old, lonely because the world they built to hold each other was replaced by a world built to hold attention. Gen Alpha, early 2010s to mid 2020s. Just keep living, baby. Raised by screens that love them more efficiently than exhausted parents ever could. Learning to relate through interfaces before faces. We don't know what they'll become. We only know what we gave them. A mirror that reflects their isolation back as entertainment. Let's get precise, because precision is respect. Alone is neutral, physical fact. You can be alone and whole. Lonely is pain. The feeling of disconnectedness even in a crowd. You can be lonely in a marriage. in a group chat with 47 people. Lonely means the connections available don't match the connections you need. That recognition is now the background radiation of modern life. Lonesome is deeper, targeted. The ache for a specific voice, a specific room, a specific past. Lonesome is what you feel when the person you used to call no longer answers. Not because they're gone, but because the call itself has become anachronistic. We are lonesome for a world still technically here, but functionally gone. Front porches, landlines, the courage to knock on a door unannounced, the risk of being rejected in person instead of the safety of being ignored digitally. We are lonesome for the unmediated human, and we don't even know how to say that because the platforms that replace that human are the same ones we use to complain about the loss. The architecture is not broken. It is working perfectly. Social media's goal is not connection. It's 100% engagement. Connection is slow, unpredictable, unmeasurable, terrible business. Engagement is fast, quantifiable, calibrated, excellent business. A platform that connected you deeply to 5 people would fail. A platform that keeps you moderately stimulated by 500 strangers and scrolling hundreds, if not thousands, of shorts. That's a gold mine. Your loneliness is not a bug. It is the business model. 73% of Americans explicitly name technology as the primary driver of the loneliness epidemic. Harvard Graduate School of Education. That's not a fringe opinion. That's a confession. Over half of all Americans spend more than 50% of waking time online. 73% of Gen Z. 64% of Millennials. You're not living online. We are leaking. A 9-year long-term study from Baylor University found that passive scrolling and active posting are both directly linked to increased loneliness over time. Every action you take on the platform makes the wound deeper. Young adults on social media more than 2 hours a day are twice as likely to suffer perceived social isolation than those under 30 minutes. Gen Z now averages 7.2 hours of screen time per day. 73% report feeling digitally exhausted. You're drowning and being told the water is refreshment. The average hyper-connected youth has hundreds of digital mutuals, but fewer than 2 close friends they can call in a real crisis. Followers are not friends. Metrics are not touch. Baby boomers, only 45% lonely, the least lonely generation. Why? Because they still have churches, neighborhoods, clubs, high-quality real-world networks. But here's the knife. When boomers do go online, the displacement hypothesis kicks in. Social media doesn't add to their lives. It replaces rich, tactile human experience with low-grade digital substitutes. Even the least lonely generation gets more lonely the more they scroll. Every other generation is trapped in the vicious cycle loop. Here's the breakdown. If you feel lonely, you log on to feel connected. You see everyone else's curated perfect life. You feel more isolated, which causes you to seek and scroll harder. The loop is the lock. The key is not on the screen. You feel this when you post something vulnerable and watch the metrics instead of the responses. Damn, you've got to let that sink in. You feel this when your first impulse for any thought is to shape it for an audience, not share it with a friend. You feel this when you're physically with someone and both of you are staring into your laps. Not because you're rude, but because the platform has trained you that elsewhere is always more urgent than here. You feel this when you realize you haven't had an unrecorded conversation in months. Your life has become a performance of living rather than living itself. And the shame. Admitting you're lonely in a world that screams you've never been more connected. Wanting something as simple as a hand on your shoulder, a voice that knows your history, a silence that doesn't need to be filled. Let me ask you, when was the last time someone genuinely gave you a hug, literally sat down across from you and deeply expressed how much they love you? Or shall I venture to say worse? When was the last time someone wanted to spend time with you, just you without asking or needing you for something in return? In a world that has monetized every form of proximity, the shame of being a human who needs humans in a system that treats that need as weakness, as nostalgia, as a failure to adapt. You're not failing to adapt. You're refusing to adapt to something that is not human. The need for unmediated presence is not a bug in your operating system. It is the operating system, the scrolling, the performing, the quantifying. That's the anomaly. Your loneliness is not a personal failure. It is an accurate perception of a structural condition. You are not broken. The architecture is broken. And it is breaking you on purpose because broken people scroll longer. Oof. You've got to sit with that. So, what do? You don't rage quit the platforms. That's another performance. You don't romanticize the past. Listen up, because those days are simply gone. You do this. You reclaim the small, unscalable, unshareable moments of actual presence. A conversation not recorded with your phone. Write a letter. Hell, write it to yourself. Tell yourself how much you love being you and why. Take off your shoes. Go walk around in the grass. I promise you, it ain't gonna kill you. Let the earth reconnect you to it. Allow yourself to be a bit embarrassed and embrace the human side of being human by being a little flirtatious. Hell, go outside, get up, and show up to be in rooms where no one is performing. You let yourself become boring and unproductive in the presence of another person, seen without a filter. That is not a solution. It is being human. The loneliness will not end because you had one good conversation. The architecture will not fall because you deleted an app. But the alternative is to keep mistaking the feed for fellowship, the notification for the need. And that alternative is not living. That is keeping the metrics alive while you die inside them. 80% of Gen Z lonely, 71 to 72% of Millennials, 60% of Gen X. Trust me, you are not alone in being alone. That's the one thing the algorithm gets right. Millions of us scrolling past each other, searching for the same thing, separated only by the architecture that profits from our separation. I want you to let that sit with you. The question is not whether you will feel lonely. You will. The question is whether you will let that loneliness be harvested or whether you will let it teach you what you actually need. And then go find it in the slow, inefficient, beautiful way humans have always found it. The door is still there. It is not on your screen. It's in the next room, the next street, the next silence you do not fill. Walk through it. Wait for an answer. That waiting is the connection. That risk is the love. That slowness is the only thing that has ever worked. You don't have to see the truth to hear it, but you do have to stop looking at the screen long enough to notice that someone is already beside you, also waiting, also afraid, also hoping that this time the connection will be real. Until next time.